Hello.
Hey, Glenn.
Hey, how's it going?
Learn something new every day.
Yeah. What's that?
Actually, my friend, he rents a little room out, and in the backyard they have a chicken coop with ducks. And I remember you saying something like, chickens, like, as soon as I go up to the coop, the chickens all run up to the gate.
Yeah.
They're the first ones to go. But the ducks, they just sit there, and
they just sit there. They're lazy ducks.
So I already have an idea of, like, you can learn a little bit from, actually a lot from just looking at the animals and stuff.
And they teach you the most important lessons.
Yeah.
And of course, they're not all just ducks or chickens or animals. Each one has a personality.
Yeah.
Just like people.
Yeah, my other friend has a chicken coop in his backyard, and he says there was one that they, like, when it was born, it was like an egg. The other ones tried to kill it, and it ended up, and he took it, and when it grew up, it ended up being the strongest one out of everybody.
Right.
And it was the leader.
That happens often.
Oh, really? What does that mean?
Well, it's lessons to be learned by the weak that make them stronger. It's a little bit like if you run into a big guy, 6'5", 280 pounds. He never really had to fight for anything.
Yeah.
People just gave him stuff.
Yeah.
So he grows up to be a bully, but can't back it up with anything. Whereas skinny little runt had to fight for everything every step of the way, so that when he grows up, he can handle any situation.
Yeah, because that's how that one chicken is. He's the one that will come up to the gate and actually, like, is not scared of people, and the other ones.
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting. Yeah.
It's all social engineering. We come into the world with genetic engineering, but then the social part takes over. And it's a combination of both that create who we are. That's why you cannot clone a human being in the sense that it would be exactly like the one before, because the one before had lived certain social experiences that the second one may not. Therefore, they cannot be the same, even though physically they might be carbon copies of each other.
Even the thinking process would be different.
Even the what?
The thinking process?
Yeah. Because it's the experiences. Your intuition would be the same, because it's not something which is programmed in this life, from the spine. But what is programmed in the brain is basically an opening of each compartment of the brain according to the experiences that you live.
Is intuition, is that linked to the, because I've heard psychologists, they try to divide the mind into the subconscious, unconscious.
No.
No, it's not? So that's a whole nother different.
Yeah. What you're talking about is id, ego, and superego.
Yeah, I've been curious about that superego. Is this all, like, linked to the medulla?
Yeah. It's like there's the real you, and there's the you that you project into the world because you've learned that the world expects certain things, that they have conventions that you must abide by. So therefore, even though that may not be you, you learn to project that into the world. And then there's the medulla, the cot, that basically says, this is what I want you to do. This is not what I want you to do. And I'll reinforce what I want you to do by tugging on your reins.
Cause, yeah, when I talk to people, like, there's people out there, like, one guy, when I talk to him, like, it's like, I guess because I'm younger, and he doesn't want to hear it. But even, like, he'll try to, like, always, try to make me look wrong. And I know, and I know, like, I have an ego, and I always try to, like, I see that control mechanism that it can make you do stupid things, or,
Yeah. It can make you depressed, or it can make you angry, all of which can get you in trouble. It can make you turn to alcohol or drugs for escape.
When people do drugs, like, because I remember you in the video, you said in each gene there's an egg, there's 25,000 instructions, basically. And
I didn't hear that.
You said, I remember you saying in the video, like in the egg,
yeah,
there's like about like 25,000.
25,000 instructions, per human being. Even though there is a total of over 100,000 instructions, to make a human being, you need about 25,000. And most animals have something like 90% are the same instructions. But the differences are what makes us who we are, not the similarities. So we may have a lot of similarities with a fly, but we're totally different in function and appearance. But most of the instructions that we have in us are basically recessive instructions. Things that were useful in the past or things that will be useful in the future. There may be an instruction on how to grow gills so that you can operate equally as well in water as you do on land, air.
So
that's like the pod. We're like peas in a pod, and the pod that surrounds us must be able to deal with the conditions in the environment in which we live. While the things on the inside, breathing, blood flow, all of those things are pretty well standard in all animals.
So these recessive genes, they can, by some, just by chance, they could just come out. Like, I remember seeing, they put them on, like, Guinness World Record type thing, like these two brothers that, like, had hair all over their face.
Yeah. It's not by chance. It's by design. The design is minuscule. Like this film about the South African couple, white supremacists.
Oh, yeah, the skin?
Yeah, who had a black daughter.
And
they discovered that it was because both parents carried the same recessive gene, that recessive gene became visible in that child.
So we all have recessive genes, so I guess it has to be.
But each one can be very particular.
Oh. So theirs happen to be that same.
It may even have been the same person way back who passed it on.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. Yeah. Like I was, I wonder now. Like you said, how basically, okay, now, like say the slaves that they make, because you said that, like they make them, like okay,
from scratch.
From scratch.
The term they use for the ones made in the lab are crypt, while the ones made by procreation for 4 generations thereafter are blood. So that's why they made mummies.
And these people, like the ones that are made from scratch, are they like war leaders?
Not necessarily. One of the most important person to be made would have been a woman that would be handed over to a neighboring king as a bride. And since they made it, they could make it that although she was not living with them, the makers, but was living with the neighboring king, her loyalty would still be to the makers. So she would basically live with the other person but act as a spy within that person's household and report that activity back to where she came from.
So she would be like a prostitute type of thing? Or like...
Yeah, well, in that kind of situation, what you had was like harems. So the king would basically have 25, 50, 100 women in a harem that he wanted to reserve for himself. And when he felt like having sex, he would call one up and she would come and lie down on the bed and he would screw her and then he'd pat her on the bum and say thank you and goodbye. And she'd go back to the harem. But if one struck his fancy because she was better at sex than the others, then he might decide to marry that person.
And that would be the spy. That would be the geisha.
That would be the queen.
Yeah.
And not only would she be there to spy, but she would be there to influence his thinking. And in the event of his death, she could even be in charge. So it became a very important tool for someone who wanted to control to have.
So somebody like that, like, would you say Cleopatra was?
Well, Cleopatra was an Egyptian, the last pharaoh, and she was a female, which was not a very ordinary thing to happen. In the world of pharaohs, it was a matriarchal line that passed on power. So it wasn't the man. But the mothers could not be pharaoh. It was the person they married in the religion of Baal that then would allow that pharaoh to rule as basically a warrior lord while she ran the household. If the husband died, then it would again wait for the woman who was in line to marry somebody before there was a new pharaoh. In the story of Akhenaten, it begins with Akhenaten is born, most likely through genetic engineering. He has a defect. His father doesn't want him around. And a priest from the laboratory, the genetic engineering laboratory, is assigned to take Akhenaten, whose name was not that at the time, was Tutmosis IV, to take him out of Egypt as far as Syria, in a place called Hurry, and keep him out of the sight of the Pharaoh. Now, the priest was married himself, and he had daughters, of which one was Nefertiti. As the Pharaoh, as the first Tutmosis, the father, passed away, there was an order given by the priesthood to go get Akhenaten, get him back into Egypt. So the priest, his wife, and his family take Akhenaten back to Egypt, and he enters in there, and it is described as his wife is Nefertiti. The priest had kind of arranged all of that beforehand, so that he would have power on the side overlooking this activity. So Nefertiti supposedly has 6 daughters by Akhenaten. In all likelihood, it didn't happen that way. She probably didn't have any by him, but had 6 daughters by genetic engineering means. And then she disappears. So there you have Akhenaten with his 6 daughters and his mother, who was now a widow. And all of a sudden, his mother becomes pregnant.
Oh, and they thought that he was
So they believed him to be having incest.
Yeah.
But in all likelihood, she was just having another baby through the usual process of genetic engineering, now that her priest was back with Akhenaten.
Yeah, I heard didn't they get kicked out, or they were...
Well, at one stage, he proclaimed a new religion, and that religion would have only one God. And it pissed off the priesthood.
Oh.
So at one stage of the game, they used the excuse that he had had incest with his mother twice and impeached him.
Oh, okay.
And told him to get the hell out. But that was only a trick planned up front so that they would have an excuse for taking all of the books and materials that they had brought to Egypt to start up the Giza Plateau and take it out to bring it back to the university, which was at Sinai, run by the Judeans. So in order to hide the real story, they said that they were slaves and that they were, in fact, going to a promised land. But when they crossed the Nile, instead of turning left, which would take them to Canaan, they turned right, which took them to Sinai. And they stayed at Sinai for 40 years. And that meant that most of the people who had, in fact, left Egypt to go with Akhenaten, whose name was now Moses, would have died during that 40 years. The average lifespan was 35 to 50.
Oh, really?
So then it's the children of these people who are taken by Moses to Canaan, and Moses disappears. And the new king, Saul, takes over. Well, Saul is the first king of Israel. But of course, you know that number one is never important.
Mm-hmm.
It's cosmetic, and only number two. So you have to wait for David, who takes over as number two, to really establish the kingdom of Israel. But the other thing you have to keep in mind is that the word Saul, S-A-U-L,
yeah,
in the code converts to ruse.
Huh.
Okay?
How does it convert to ruse?
Well, you've got the letter U there.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the letter S.
Mm-hmm.
What you
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What you don't have is an R, but an L can be an R because left, right, and straight.
Oh.
Okay?
Oh.
And you don't have an E, but the A can be an E.
That's why A and E were connected.
Put together.
Oh. So when they say, like, you know, like when they talk about vowels, A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y, are those letters interchangeable?
Yeah, it's because they were not part of the writings given to ordinary people. The vowels were only known by the rabbis.
Oh, yeah, and that Hebrew language is how they pronounce words. It's, that reminds me of that word like Jehovah. Pretty long interpretation.
Yahweh.
Yeah, Yahweh. That was the secret word that they couldn't pronounce, or it was illegal.
Yeah, because they didn't know the vowels.
Oh, yeah.
Now, of course, the priests, they've been playing a game throughout all of this because they're not really priests of Israel. They were taken in 586 to Iran, which Babylon, whatever you want to call Iran, Iraq, Media, and reprogrammed for 49 years till 537 B.C. into Zoroastrian.
Yeah, and they were led by Zerubbabel, right?
Yeah. So they are really Zoroastrians who basically go by the term Judaism. But Judaism is a play on the word Judean, which has the word deen in there.
Yeah. What can I learn more about these people, Judeans?
Well, they're Jordanians today.
Oh.
And they were Pakistanis before Pakistan existed. They came from India, and that part of India is now Pakistan. They came from the Swat Valley, India, which is now Pakistan. It's where their base is. And in Arabic, the base is Al-Qaeda.
The base, yeah. So whenever you see this word deen and the word like Chaldean,
it refers to two things. Knowledge, ancient knowledge, because in a university, the guy that has most knowledge is usually the dean of a department.
Yeah.
And it's linked to dinosaur, old. Dino.
Yeah.
Dean Martin. They used to call him Dino. Dean Martin.
So with these females, right? Because you said that the females, their job is basically their program is security and sovereignty. So once they have security and sovereignty, what's the next step for them?
Well, they nobody ever feels they have what they're looking for when it involves security or sovereignty, because sovereignty means you rule over something, and you always want to rule over a bigger space. That's why they started with the clan, and now they want to rule the universe. And do you know anybody who has $1 billion and says, "Oh, that's enough, I'm going to go sit on a beach"?
Because I'm looking at people like Oprah.
Yeah.
This lady, she has to be.
Of course she is. She's not. Nobody earns that kind of money.
Oh yeah, anybody has up there.
Given to her.
Yeah. She
was appointed. You know, she's Harpo Marx.
Yeah, Harpocrates. Yeah. I've read that in the encyclopedia. And they had like a temple, I think, too.
Yeah.
Secrecy.
She's just a manufactured person.
Yeah.
To handle a specific task that involved politics without being directly in politics. Because politicians have a bad reputation, so you put a lady like Oprah on TV and you make her tell people which books to read.
Yeah.
You know, who to love and who not to love. And especially you got to love this guy who's going to come and be the first black president.
Oh, yes, he was just a political...
Yeah. Nobody can come out of Chicago and be just a nice guy. I mean, Chicago has a process for appointing top-ranking politicians, and you have to be the biggest crooks.
Yeah.
The only one you don't steal from is the Godfather's clan.
Oh, man, Chicago is... You said, and then the particle accelerators over there, too?
The who?
The particle accelerator, CERN?
Yeah. Well, in Chicago, it's called Fermi.
Oh, that's okay.
Spelled with an I instead of an E at the end.
Oh. Yeah.
In French, the word for farm is ferme. F-E-R-M-E.
Ferme? I thought doesn't that mean close?
No, that's fermé.
Oh.
Closed. Fermé.
Oh.
But the world is run by a gardener, a constant gardener. So the symbol for where you do gardening is on a farm. That's why the mafia is known as the firm. It's all a play on the same word.
And then they call themselves the mob,
yeah.
which is this brotherhood of man backwards, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
And since Chicago is the center, and most of the people who founded Chicago were Polish descent, Eastern European Polish descent, it's just another division of the Vatican. You know, you got the Vatican in Rome and the mob in Sicily, and they're divisions of the same government.
Yeah, they have another place that's similar to the Vatican. It's called, it's just like the Vatican. It's all like fancy and everything. I forgot the name of it.
Well, there's one in Russia, St. Petersburg.
Oh, St. Peter.
And there's one in Greece for the Greek Orthodox. So
it's like its own separate entity, like.
Yeah, it's just divisions of the same thing.
Oh.
The whole thing always begins with one, and then it creates a division in which it can be made to appear to be fighting with, good cop, bad cop type of thing.
Yeah, that's.
So, to the Vatican was a division of the Greek and Russian Orthodox churches. And the Vatican basically has a division which we call Protestants.
Yeah.
Anglicans in England, Presbyterians in Scotland, Unitarians in Holland.
Yeah, it's just like,
Calvin ran the show, in Switzerland.
So that's the MO, right? Just to subdivide.
Because there's a lot of benefits to be gathered by a controller when he has a lot of agents looking at the same thing from different perspectives.
But the one religion, though, I noticed doesn't have that many. Like it was Islam. Like it has some, but I guess it just looks different. I guess
Islam is the same thing. It's got the really important group is called shit.
Yeah.
Shiite. It's just a play on the word shit. And then the money boys are the other gang.
The Sun. And I remember I told you something. You told me that the pilgrims, the Eastern, like the West, pilgrims, it was Eastern Freemasonry or something like that. But isn't pilgrims just any missionary or priest who spreads religion, perpetuates it? Because I've seen that in like the Buddhists, they were called
pilgrim means wanderer.
Oh, okay, all right. So
and the people of the Romas were called wanderers, and then they developed a following which we call Judaism, and they became wanderers. They have no specific place in which they live. They are basically tasked to travel the world and create new divisions as they go along. Yeah. So that's basically all a pilgrim means is someone who wanders and in their old age goes back to visit the places that were created by them in the past, such as Jerusalem or Rome or Paris or that place in Spain where a lot of the Masons go.
Oh, the way St. James at the way.
St. James Cathedral there. It's near the northern western tip of Spain there. Anybody who sees the church can change their name to King.
So, yeah, you saying something about, like, you said Rome. I remember. Hello?
Hey?
Oh, thought I heard somebody pick up the phone.
There is somebody on the phone trying to. Somebody always calls at the same time, so. But I don't answer anymore because I'm just going back and forth and can't finish any conversation.
Yeah. Something really interesting I said was the Roman College of Artificers. I don't know if you remember that.
Roman carriage?
No, the Roman. It's a college of
College of Physicians.
They were basically like Masonry has like.
Yeah, there's thousands of names, and you can't get stuck on names because you never basically move ahead. You just have to basically put in your mind that there are two divisions. One is in the priesthood, which they call ecclesiastic, and it doesn't matter whether they're Buddhist, Brahmin, Vatican, Protestant, that's irrelevant. They're all the same, all the priests, and then the other division is called secular Freemasonry.
Yeah, that's the main division. But in the encyclopedia, I've seen that ecclesiastic, they actually divided into three groups. It was monastic.
Well, that means in the priesthood there are different approaches that are taken.
Yeah.
Some go inside and are monastic. They live in a monastery.
Yeah,
and they copy books and
Uh-huh.
that kind of stuff. It's just task-oriented.
Yeah.
But it's no different than in a business. You have a mailroom,
Mhm.
you know. So what?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not the purpose of the business. It's just you need a mailroom in a business. Well, you need monasteries in ecclesiastic Freemasonry.
Yeah, and but in there they were saying it's monastic, militant, and I forgot the other one. But they said that and mendicant, that's the other one.
That means poor people.
Yeah,
Beggars.
poor. That's Alan Watt right there.
Yeah, beggars.
But was weird, like funny, like I guess it was just a straight out lie. They do that in these books. They said that the mendicant have no connection with Freemasons.
No, that's bullshit. How can you have no connection with Freemasonry when priesthood is Freemasonry?
Yeah, but I just don't understand why he would do. Like, why would he list that as ecclesiastic priesthood, then say it doesn't have any connection with Freemasons? I don't know why he would do that.
There's a need for leadership, and that's ecclesiastic.
Yeah.
And there is a need for spies. And the two main divisions of spies that they have is Roma, gypsies, who are known throughout the world under different names. And in the United States, they are known as Native Americans or Indians. They basically spy from the ground up, while the leaders control from the top down. They appear to be on not on talking levels with each other, but in fact they are basically complementary to each other. It's like burning a candle at both ends. They're both working towards the middle.
Yeah.
But apart from those two main concepts of working both ends towards the middle, they had to have a part that would be spies in the middle. And that became the unicorn, or the wee man. That's why they called King Louis, because they're yes men, but they're not men.
So when did they come out with can you pinpoint like when exactly they?
Well, if you go back to Egypt, you'll find some women, Nefertiti, and
those were the 2-in-1s, right? Those were the 2-in-1 hermaphrodites.
Yeah. The Hatshepsut, Hatshepsut, that was one of the 2-in-1s. Probably Cleopatra.
Yeah, because this guy, I think, was
an ugly-looking woman. Cleopatra was.
Oh, really? Because she's described as this beautiful and
Taylor.
Oh, so she must have really been like, good at oral sex with Caesar. Because I've heard of, Caesar was like really in love with her or something like that.
Yeah. Well, when you haven't had that kind of activity in your life, especially if you're in the military and not home often, hey. I may be 68 years old, but I remember.
Yeah. But
certainly better than going to bed with a woman who says, "Oh, you want sex? Okay. Well, you got 15 minutes. Let me know when it's over."
Yeah.
How do you know when she's had an orgasm? Is she drops her ice cream cone on your back?
Yeah. But I see, the women today, for the most part, they just want to accumulate money. Like, they actually work as much as the men do.
Of course.
And just to accumulate this money and put it in the bank account so it gets stolen from them. And
they have the qualities embedded in them genetically now from the Neanderthals.
Yeah.
That's what Neanderthals did. They lived in caves and they accumulated. And what they wanted and could not get was respect out in the community as being equals to the clan mothers.
So Clan Mother was in the wrong too on a certain level, right? Because she was greedy, in a sense.
Well,
seems like.
No, the clan mothers in matriarchal societies are greedy.
Oh.
But if you go past the Ice Age, it's a different story.
Oh.
You can't mix the two of them up.
Yeah.
They had lost their power by the time the Ice Age ended.
Oh, so what was the war that happened with before the matriarchy then? What was that like?
That was in 58,800 BC when they told the Neanderthals, no, you can't have our little boys.
Oh, and then they came out and
they had a fight over it, and they got expelled, because in a clan society, if you did a crime, you were expelled at first for a couple of months, then for a couple of years, and then forever.
And then
so
death.
They got to that point, and the Neanderthals, although they were originally related to clan mothers thousands, if not millions of years before, were evicted. So they had to go live in the mountains. They went to live in Somalia.
Yeah. They love mountains. I always hear, like, all the priests, they all go to the mountains.
They came originally from Turkey. And Turkey is a country of mountains.
Yeah.
And caves and underground buildings.
There's another mountain that's pretty interesting, too, I heard. It's called Mount Moriah.
I beg your pardon?
Mount Moriah.
Yeah. That's Mount Moriah is a mountain, a part of the number of mountains that have been famous by the system before. The first one was Mount Meru in Africa, next to Mount Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
You
think there's anybody still over there? Like it's.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
Mount Kilimanjaro, as a matter of fact, is losing its snow cap these days. It won't have any snow in the next 5 or 6 years.
Now these Neanderthals, what do you think is the lifespan of them today? Like how long?
I have no idea. I have absolutely no way of knowing, even if they are still physically alive.
So the robot...
Once they transferred their genius
to the machine, computer.
To the machine, to the computer, HAL, then they became extinct for all intents and purposes. There was no real purpose for them. They were not physically able to do much. And, you never know. Maybe the robot decided to keep them like pets.
Yeah.
E.T. types,
So this is a robot, which is like a... So it's just one entity, one...
As far as I can determine, a computer that teaches itself is compartmentalized, and it has points of merger, so that instead of having just one big robot that has to go through, for every question asked, go through asking the entire question of the one machine, it subdivides the task into the appropriate divisions of the computer, and simultaneously it performs searches in each of the appropriate sections, and then it brings all of the information and combines them into a final answer. So does that describe a one computer or a compartmentalized computer? I suggest that what they have, if it's in one place, they would have more than one. And in likelihood, it's not in one place. It's on a mobile platform, such as what we would call subway train. They're always on the move in this geodesic roadway that they have, so that if ever by accident
a volcano
happens to one, it doesn't happen to all of them. So it's a decentralized memory, something like clouds. They're all over the place, and then they're not, and they appear, and they're never quite the same, and
So yeah, whenever, when I read these things now, because I can, with the words, I can't apply it like you do, but when they talk about the supreme being, I know in the word it says Sue, it's a boy named Sue, and Preme is Primo.
It also has soup. And soup is basically what they're about to make.
A stew?
Yeah, mesopotage is a stew, fish stew.
Well, I guess that's where we get that, they're going to make a big mess. So.
Yeah, that's why you got to have a critical mass to fight the critical mess.
Oh.
The A is like the cosmetic one, while the E is the destroyer one. The O is the original.
Is that related to when they talk about the creator, destroyer, and preserver?
Yeah, what you have is Santa Claus and Satan. The same word, Santa and Satan, just the letters scrambled.
So yeah, I'm trying to study these animals and look at them and try to learn something. Is there anything you think I could look for? I should look for?
Well, you have to see how curious they are. You have to see how they react, that they're fearful at the same time as they're curious. So it's always kind of trying to sneak up and learn, but quickly run back because they're afraid at the same time. So have that dual personality that comes about. And then you look at their method of having sex. For some animals, they would pair up and stay with the same partner for a long time.
Yeah.
And others, they would screw anything that walks, even a turtle without a shell.
Yeah, like I was I have a conversation with a friend of mine last night, saying like some animals, like I think of one particular animal, it'll have a mate, and if that mate dies, it'll never have any other mate.
That's a myth.
Oh, really?
Even the birds that are monogamous and stay with the same partner all their lives have affairs. They're not always out gathering worms.
Yeah. You know what? Like, I don't think I'm coming to the conclusion that I don't think that human beings like me, like, we're not meant to be monogamous. We're not meant to be the same person.
Absolutely not. Marriage is a dysfunctional project done for the purpose of keeping you off guard and unbalanced.
Yeah.
And it's the equivalent of taking two separate people and nailing their feet together.
Yep.
It basically makes less out of both of them, not more.
Yeah, because the whole thing is so screwed up when people be like, well, how do you gonna have kids and children? And it's everything. So it's because
it's all a compromise.
Yeah, because to have kids and raise the children it would have to be like you said, like 12 around one, like the clan, like.
Yeah.
But everything's so screwed up.
What do two people have to offer to a child? Arguments. That's it.
Oh,
what do you get from a child who listens to arguments all the time?
It's either this side or that side. Yeah. That's that media. Wow.
Yeah. And they're not there to teach a trade or a function of anything. They're there to say my way, not his way, or her way, not my way. You know?
Yeah. Wow. Wow. So
it's dysfunctional, and that's why it was set up.
Oh, man.
Period. So I've never, ever in my life met a functional family.
Oh, me neither.
I met some who pretend when you meet them for the first time.
Yeah.
You know, they invite you to their place for a barbecue, but turn around and leave and hide in the bushes.
Yeah. Yeah. They're trying to live up to that ideal that they see in the media, because that's what they in the media they tell you to live that lie. This is how it should be. This ideal. Absolutely,
and a compromise is never the solution.
Yeah. Yeah.
You either have the solution or you don't, and being half pregnant doesn't work.
Yeah. Wow. So somebody like me, like in my position, like I would like to have a child, and but it's like, but I can't though in a sense because
it's unfair. You discover that too late, mind you. But it's unfair to the children to bring people up in a situation which you have defined through experience is dysfunctional.
So it's just so like, but to try to explain this to somebody.
No, it's too late to explain it.
Yeah.
The media is in control of the brains, and the medulla agrees with the media. So only those few people who have retained a functioning brain can work it out based on the evidence.
That's and with that stone that you're digging up that you wanna get. I was reading. Actually, I sent you an email not too long ago, on what I read in the encyclopedia. They talked about Enoch, and they said that it was 2 stones or 2 pillars or something like that, and one was to to withstand fire, and another one was to withstand water.
Yeah.
And now,
those are basically stelas, pillars, not the building. And I've read Mackey as well, and it's one version of events, but it's not the same version as what you will find in the Hebrew Bible, for example.
Yeah.
So it's like all things that come attached to the Bible. They've been manipulated by those who held the book over time, so to fit their view of the world. But that's really not important. The important thing is that there was secret information shared, and from that secret information, certain activities began to occur, and those activities that began to occur at that period in time between 3,000 and 4,000 BC are linked to genetic engineering. So that's basically what they were taught.
Yeah.
The other part is there's another piece of the information that was not given to them that needs to be found because it would explain the much bigger picture rather than simply genetic engineering. It would explain the bigger plan and how science functions and how the Big Bang came about and all of that stuff. So that's what we're looking for, is that second piece.
In the piece, is it actually like what the stone is made of, or is it like something written on it that you're looking for? Or
no, what I'm looking for is a tablet. Tablet that was either square or rectangular, probably square, and had half of the information on the upper left-hand side and half the information on the lower right-hand side, and was cut diagonally. So that means the tablet would be
two triangles,
triangular, but the writing and symbolisms would all fit within that triangle. Would not be like cutting across the genetic information and leaving one part on one side and one part on the other. It's separate information that's on both. That's basically how I see it. And I've read 4 or 5 different versions of Enoch. The important word is the word Enoch.
One.
It has one, and it has CH, which stands for K, which is the mission.
And I seen he had a brother named Lamech.
Lamech.
I guess that would be male. Is the mission?
That's what you have in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Alam, Lame, Lamech.
And me, the Sioux.
Yeah. And Elam was the capital of the Media.
Yeah.
So all of that stuff is linked. And there's another guy just before then or just after them called Enos.
Oh, Enos.
Yeah, and that's Enos fruit salt. Is a hint there.
Enos fruit salt.
So basalt
and
fruit is a word they use for homosexual these days. But the word moho is the word homo.
Oh, yeah, okay. That's
the connection. It's not their sexuality. It's where they
come
from.
To the top, yeah. And with the, oh, wow. This jumped out of my mind. I hate it when that happens. Yeah. With the, wow. Damn, wow, I hate it when that happens. We're just on the tip of my tongue. I forgot it. Well, it'll come back to me.
Yeah. Anyways, I got to go because I'm going to fall asleep, but there'll probably be 2 or 3 callers before then.
Yeah. Are you getting new callers or the same callers?
It's basically the same callers. There's groups that I call website callers, email callers, and callers that originated around the discs that were put on by you there on
Oh yeah, on
Google.
Yeah.
So it's 3 basic divisions there, and then I have family, old people that I knew long ago type of thing.
Yeah, how was that couple? The couple that you, I think Barbara and you mentioned them in your video. I guess they really understand it. I guess
they're 4 women. I call them my spouses, although most of them are married.
Yeah.
A spouse is another word for mouse, Minnie Mouse, hanging around with Mickey. And they each bring something into the relationship, which is different. 4 different women, different social engineering, each of them. Some are probably even we men, if not all. That's not the determining factor. It would even be important if you can take a person who has been programmed totally by Eastern Star and other groups of programmers and manage to break their train of thought and turn it on to going in the right direction. It's one of the toughest jobs in the world to do with women because of the fact that they're not risk takers. Basically looking for stability, security, and sovereignty.
Yeah. Are those women that you said in your newspaper you mentioned, the women, the wise women of...
Yeah, wise women from the West.
Yeah.
4 wise women from the West.
And I seen that you set up your own order, too. It was the Order of Independent Canadian, I think it was? Or?
Yeah, the Assembly of Independent Canadians. I said if ever we succeed at something, we need a different name than the Canadian Institute for Political Integrity, because it would have political integrity. So if we succeed at some place in the future, I said I would want it to be someone who would do the job of the CIA.
Yeah.
That they don't do. Like, tell the truth. So using CIA and moving the letters around, AIC seemed to fit the purpose. And it was a friend of the woman I was living with who suggested that as a name. Much in the same way as he suggested CIPI. I didn't come up with those names, but they were suggested to me, and they seemed to fit the bill at the time.
Are you, like, you don't talk to much of those people that you did the newspaper with, right, anymore?
Don't talk to those people that I what?
That you had published the newspaper with?
Published the newspaper with. I didn't publish the newspaper with anybody. I did it.
Oh.
I had...
I'm saying the people that, like... Because there were other people's articles that you put in there.
Yeah, I had a person come in when we did the first paper. And she came from BC. And she had background in graphic layout and design. my background was in printing, typesetting, and management. She said she could handle the paper. She worked on the first paper for about 3 months. Got it printed. Said can't have a newspaper that takes 3 months to put together. So she went back to live in BC after the first paper, and I began to do it on my own. From issue number 2 to 22?
Yeah, I think it was 21. I
did it on my own, and it took me approximately 2 weeks.
Wow, you wrote a lot of stuff too. And
the people that were involved in the first newspaper, sending in articles and stuff like that, seemed to want to control what I was going to write about.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't allow them.
Yeah, in the first issue, I think, or the second one, you and Shelly Ann exposed somebody who was trying to, like, I guess, subvert you. It was a lady.
Well, that's been the story of my life. So it's nothing new. I expect it. As a matter of fact, I don't even mind it, because it's one of the ways that I learned about people was through their spying activity, their attempts to destroy me or try to stop me. And from each one of those events, I grew stronger. I understood that what I was saying was so important that they had to try and prevent me from doing it. And it sent me deeper and deeper and deeper. Certainly, I didn't take off on a journey to ever expect that I would be having an argument with God. That's what it turns out to be.
Yeah. I was at first, when as I went deeper, I thought, okay, God is, it's a made up person. Then I find your stuff, and I'm like, God is actually real, but he's not what you think he is.
Yeah, exactly. He's just the top dog who runs a system of collection. He has a bunch of male and female dogs. The male fetches from the top, and the female fetches from down below. And the female is more effective at getting information. If you compare what a priest learns in confessionals.
Oh yeah, that's like one of the first spy.
Yeah, as opposed to what the woman learns in the bedroom. There's no comparison. The woman always can get much more information than the priest.
When you found that Desdemona code, that's when everybody was just like, all right, now we're not talking to you anymore, Glenn. You're totally nuts.
Well, the first thing I talked about was troglodytes.
You're the one that brought that out, right?
Yeah. and it really sent people for a loop. I don't understand why I'm talking about people who live in caves. What's so frightening about people who live in caves?
It just sounds so bizarre to what people are used to. Because like you said, the media controls their mind.
Yeah, I said, well, why don't you go visit Turkey or Israel or Iraq or any of those places and ask for a tour of the caves, or go to France and ask for a tour of the Lascaux caves.
Yeah, and you always
in your neighborhood.
Yeah, I always hear like these guys, like Moses, and when they set up the Kabbalah, the people who helped set it up, these people lived in caves, and they always have reference to caverns, some type of cave. Now, in the book, before I let you go, in that book, hello?
Yeah.
In that book, the encyclopedia, they talk about this lost word. Is that word the Desdemona, the lost word? Or?
I don't know which lost word they could be referring to.
Oh, it's the last of them? Huh. Because they were talking about Jehovah.
The word that they're talking about is mitts. When they say mum's the word.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, mum is mummies.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about mummies.
Mm.
And is the word, well, in French, the word is mot, M-O-T.
Mm-hmm.
And so if the word is mot, then what they're referring to in English is Tom, because T-O-M is Tom. But because they never do it directly, what they're referring to is more probably related to Tim. Tim is basically lame, can't do things, and that's why they use Timmy in the, Jerry Lewis has the campaign to raise funds.
For little Timmy.
Eh?
But you said Jerry Lewis is the person. I want people. I think that's like in like starving children.
Yeah, and crippled children.
Yeah.
Things like that. Well, in reality, what they are referring to is mitt. Like in the past, there was the Neanderthaler and all of us. And that's like a mitt. All you see is one thumb, and everything else is bunched together in a mitt. But the future cannot operate on that principle because it's got to be done throughout the universe. So the new way of doing things is glove. So that you have these independent fingers out there working to bring things back to the hand. Hand has DNA in the word hand, and the thumb is still there, operates as a separate unit. So they're instead of having one guy responsible for everything, you're now going to have one guy dealing with 4 divisions, and those 4 divisions will be independent of each other and the thumb, but will be controlled by the thumb through genetic engineering and the ability to give birth. That's why Michael Jackson gives out these gloves and wears these gloves with jewels on them.
So he's in on the plan then?
Yeah, absolutely. He's front line along with his female guide there, which is Elizabeth Taylor.
Oh, so the whole thing, how the media basically crucified him with the little children, molesting little children, that was all an act? You think he was just...
Of course. That was all.
He would do that? He would really just let the whole world think he was a molester?
Absolutely. In order for him to follow his instructions in the program. It's like George Bush. Yeah. George Bush went into office to do everything he possibly could think of that would cause people to hate him.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. Michael Jackson, it's more personal. George Bush is more public, but that's what they do. It's in the same way they can turn one of their robots on to go into school and kill 32 people.
Yeah.
You know? It's an instruction given, and they receive it like a radio. Start playing it. So it's nothing strange for them. Politicians have a role to play, and their role is to take blame.
So what do you think, like, that basketball...
For that, they make a lot of money.
So do you remember that basketball player? They called, his name was Magic Johnson.
Yeah.
And he had the HIV
Yeah, everybody in sport, professional sport, is in on this in one way or another.
Yeah.
It's on a need-to-know basis because sport, especially team sports, is how you check if you're making progress in the ability to control an individual. If you're sitting in the stands and you can turn on a gadget that basically distracts the goalie for a fraction of a second, they'll score a goal on him.
Yeah.
And if you weren't doing it, he'd stop the goal from being scored.
Yeah.
Or if you have a Tiger Woods who's taking a shot with his driver and he keeps making the same mistake, it's not Tiger Woods who's making the mistake. It's the programming is being affected so that at the right half second he gets a distraction and doesn't do what he would normally be able to do. Through that process, they've been able to break down and understand completely how they can control individuals from a distance. That's where you get that term, so mote it be. So mote it be is really so remote it be.
Yeah. To all these people, like, when you see, do you think all these sports players are all basically task-specific?
On a need-to-know basis.
And they're basically bred. So do you think, I know this is kind of awkward, do you think even like pornographic stars? Wow.
Everything. Everything that is media, whether it's sports or movies or cartoons or whatever, all have a role to play. And therefore the people in them are playing a role. Remember what Shakespeare said, the whole world's a stage.
Yep.
Well, stop for a second and say, what is meant by a stage? S-T. S is number one, T is number two. So number two goes to number one, so that's a 2-in-1 age. That's the age we're living. It's the age of Polaris.
Yeah. And see, that's the why you're able to break down the words, because that's how the Masons look at the words, because they were taught by Pythagoras that each letter was very sacred and holy. And
but it's not a letter that's important as much as a syllable.
Yeah.
And once you get to the word, you're confusing. So you always have to back up to that second last position, not the letter, but the syllable. And it reminds you that what you're talking about is silly Abel.
Yeah, silly Abel.
Not smart Cain.
Yeah.
But silly Abel.
Abel, that was in the background. He was the priest.
And who didn't want to work and just want to play the flute and basically control the sheep.
Yeah. Oh, man.
And in the digestive system, it comes out as second last, caca, number 2, and P, number 1. So the P is the number 6 or number 9. And with the letters, if you attach it to an H, which means connection, it's connected to 1. Because the H has one bar that goes on top of the P bar, and you're left with a 1. So it's 16 in looking at the numbers. And 61 is the year before the N, because the N will be in 2062. So it all has its references, and there is no one answer. There are numerous things shown up by every symbol. And that way they can deny. You say one, they say, no, it's the other.
Yeah. That's why I know. That's why I never accept an explanation, like when I'm reading the fact. I never, I overstand, but I'll never just accept the one they give me. I know there's something more.
You have to always bring it back into your own brain.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Compare it to two things. Indirect reasoning based on observation.
Mm-hmm.
Preponderance of the circumstantial evidence.
Yeah. So
it begins by observing and reasoning. You don't have to be there and, to know that somebody's a murderer in a court of law. You don't have to have been at the murder site when it happened. You have to look at the evidence and then say from that evidence, through my indirect reasoning, I believe that this person killed him. The other thing is, if the evidence is circumstantial, but it is in preponderance, it's overwhelming, then you have to accept the fact that that's most likely what the problem is. In the question we have at hand, we have to say, why is it that women do things in a certain manner and men do things in a certain manner? They've been programmed.
Yeah.
Why is it that their program doesn't start at zero every time they're born? Well, obviously, it's because there's a part of the program that came from before. Where does that come from? It comes from genetics, comes from genome. Can you play with that? Yes, we know they can play with that. They've made pigs and sheep and what have you. Human beings are just another animal. If you can make a pig, you can make a person. So just because they tell you they're not doing it, do you believe everything you're told?
No.
So they have been doing it for a lot longer than most people can even imagine.
Yeah.
It's always coming back down to that. You read the information, you match it up with what you know, you ask your intuition its opinion, you reason the total out in your brain, and you come to a conclusion that you believe in.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
And the conclusion I've come to is there's a bunch of guys who are lacking in self-worth, who basically set up a system where they can be control freaks, and they control it through a common denominator they call money. And fear is the driving factor. So the fear of being poor.
Yeah, it's always used fear. Like right now, the fear is the swine flu.
Yeah.
And I didn't even hit, because I don't watch the media. I really try to stay away from it. But
and if you take the word swine, the first letter and the last letter, S and E, that is phonetically EC, here. And then in the middle, you have WIN, which is win. And if you flip the W, you have min. Brahmin, win.
Wow, that's really like layered.
Yeah.
Explanation.
More than chickens can do. Chickens lay for chicken food. In any event, have a good day. Talk to you again sometime.
Okay.
Now I got to let some other people talk to me while I'm still awake.
All right, Glenn.
Okay.
Okay,
bye.
bye.